Order. Can we proceed? The Secretary will read the next order.
Debate on Vote 2, Provincial Parliament, Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
I see the Speaker.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Premier, Honourable Members of Cabinet, Members of the House and our visitors in the gallery. It is indeed a privilege today to introduce the Western Cape Provincial Parliament budget for 2016-2017. This budget gets introduced against the backdrop of serious financial challenges facing our country and our province, as articulated by the President in his State of the Nation address, as well as the Honourable Premier in her State of the Province address. Both Ministers Gordon and Mayor have highlighted the need for austerity and cost containment and the elimination of non-essential expenditure. The state of the economy has a direct effect on our business, and in fact, with a 0.25% increase, we just see the fact the staff are going to have to deal with that because the interest rate affects their ability to service bonds and other debt. In fact, it affects all of us. In his introduction of the budget, Minister Mayor intimated that the expenditure ceiling nationally is to be cut over the next 3 years by 25 billion rand. Now, 25 billion rand is a vast amount of money, and that will be done by mainly curtailing personnel spending. Members will recall that in my budget speech last year, I committed myself and the administration to do more with less. The opposition spent a considerable amount of time debating during last year's budget on the shockingly low increase of only 4.89% in our budget, and accused me of not fighting hard enough for a fair share of the main budget for the legislature. They even accused Minister Mayor of cutting money off the legislature to close down the democratic space in the legislature. And if you look at the budget allocation for 2016-17, you will find that the Provincial Parliament has received the second highest percentage increase of all votes in the province. Let me take this opportunity to thank the Honourable Minister for his understanding and appreciation of our peculiar situation and the manner in which we could engage with Treasury in this regard. Both the national and provincial constitutions empower legislatures to determine their own internal arrangements, procedures and proceedings. It is a very significant and entrenched feature of parliaments across the democratic world. It is therefore disturbing that there is a concerted effort in the sector to establish a legislative sector founded on legislation, and a bill is being drafted in this regard. The intention is to provide for, inter alia, uniform governance structures for all legislatures, the values legislatures must subscribe to, conditions of employment for all officials in legislatures. This bill will also make provision for regulation of a vast array of matters within provincial legislatures. And these regulations will be made by the Speaker of the National Assembly and the Chairperson of the NCOP, binding provincial legislatures. I am alerting members at this early stage because we are of the view that if this process continues in its current format, it will seriously infringe the rights of provincial legislatures as autonomous institutions and will be in violation of both the national and provincial constitutions. Hopefully the members of the official opposition, who have in the past so eloquently lectured me on what a constitutional democracy is all about, will support us in opposing any action deemed to be unconstitutional and infringing on our rights. We shall keep a close watch on that space, and members will be informed of developments in this regard on a continuous basis. I would like to take the opportunity to welcome Dr. Lawrence in our midst as the Acting Secretary of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Dr. Lawrence will spearhead various projects, one of which is to ensure that WCPP as an optimal organizational structure to support our members. We have also identified various internal policies for review. The recruitment and selection policy is one such policy. We want to create an environment where, for example, our own staff can be promoted to more senior positions that they qualify for. Similarly, our performance management system will be extensively overhauled in consultation with all relevant role players. Deputy Speaker, allow me to now deal with the specifics of our budget. As alluded to earlier, the Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan, in his budget speech, gave us the harsh reality of the South African economy. The rand has depreciated, confidence of business and consumers has fallen, and economic growth continues to decline. As one of the measures to address this decline, the Minister introduced the cutting of state expenditure, as I said, by 25 billion over the medium-term expenditure framework period. It is against this backdrop that the Provincial Parliament has developed its 2016-2017 budget. Deputy Speaker, as a Provincial Parliament, we have a responsibility to look at cost containment measures, as cutting costs frees up money to use in other areas of our business. Our business is sound, but we need every employee and every member's help this year in finding ways to cut costs. We need to look at our productivity levels and how efficiently we use our time. Deputy Speaker, our mission is to provide quality parliamentary and corporate support to enable members to fulfill their constitutional functions and to facilitate public involvement in parliamentary activities. The plans and accompanying budget seek to provide that support. The members often, or some members often, criticize the administration of this Parliament, and so they should when criticism is due. And in response, the administration makes every effort to improve its service offerings to determine exactly what the needs of the members are. However, in order to do so, the members of the House have a very important role to play. If they do not play this role, it makes it very difficult for the administration to make headway. Every year, the administration distributes a survey amongst the members of this House, requesting feedback on the many services they provide. During the first quarter of this financial year, the administration circulated a survey to all of the ordinary 31 members, and members were given 2 weeks to respond. Only 42% of members completed and returned these surveys. In order to improve efficiency and modernize processes, the Human Resources and Communication and Information sections increased the functionality of the members' portal on the WCPP website in order to make available information regarding members' remuneration and enabling allowances, as well as providing the facility to submit claims online. This functionality goes a long way in improving the service offering of the website and the ability of members to submit claims remotely from their constituencies. The administration put a lot of effort into developing training material and consulting in order to identify suitable slots on the program in order to conduct training with the members. And over the course of 2 training sessions, sadly, only 8 members attended, which is less than 20%. WCPP will in this financial year roll out the bulk of its skills development program project, GROW. And all employees in WCPP will undergo training that has been tailor-made to address skills gaps that were identified during a comprehensive skills assessment process. We are systematically addressing skills gaps that were professionally determined in an effort to make sure that skills development truly is an investment in the individual and in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Deputy Speaker, our budget for 2016-2017 of 130.821 million is an increase of 8.655% or 10.413 million on the revised estimate of 2015-2016. In a provincial context, this is the second highest percentage increase of all the votes, as said earlier. Deputy Speaker, we requested 34 million additional to our baseline. Included in the 34 million was 13 million projected for the implementation of the Financial Management of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, also known as FAMPLA. The balance was to enhance and strengthen support for oversight, increase public participation, strengthening security, increase allowances for political parties, ICT refresh, and licensing and other strategic support services. I would like to expand on the implementation of FAMPLA. The Act requires us to establish an oversight mechanism of Parliament, and in our instance, we have established a Parliamentary Oversight Committee to establish a Treasury unit, establish an internal audit unit, as well as an audit committee. We also need to prepare financial statements in accordance with the standards of generally recognized accounting practice, also known as GRAP. We've successfully implemented the oversight mechanism and provided internal support for this committee. Currently, the Department of the Premier provides the internal audit function for WCPP, and by agreement, this practice will continue. Similarly, we utilize the Shared Audit Committee, which will also continue. This arrangement will save WCPP approximately 3.5 million rand a year. I recall the Honourable Ace vehemently argued that we should not share services, but rather create our own internal audit unit. But then again, the saving of substantial amounts of money by sharing services is apparently not high on the list of the Honourable Ace's priorities. The phrase, "Moenie bekommer nie, ons kry altyd die geld," still echoes in my ear. Deputy Speaker, the 130 million is allocated to 3 programs mainly. Program 1, which is administration, is 63 million, and that's a 20% increase. Program 2, facilities for members and political parties, is 44 million, and that is a 6% increase. And then Program 3, which is parliamentary services, is 22,927,000, which is a total of 130,821,000. If we look at the budget as per economic classifications, it is as follows. Compensation of employees increased by 14.28% in 2016-2017, from the 2015-16 revised estimate of 50 million to 57,302,000. This is the provision of salary adjustments as well as the strengthening of the internal control function. Compensation of employees represents 43% of the budget. Goods and services increased by 6.7%. The revised estimate now moves to 32.6 million, and this incorporates the funding related to the procurement and implementation of a new ERP system, as well as fulfilling the FAMPLA requirements. It must be noted that the initial increase of goods and services was well under inflation. If the additional funding received from Provincial Treasury, specifically for the ERP system, as well as FAMPLA requirements, is excluded from the baseline. Goods and services represents 25% of the budget. Departmental agencies and accounts increased by 42% in 2016-17. This increase is due to the budget for TV licenses being based on the total number of TVs in use, as compared to a lower actual expenditure of the previous year. And that represents 0.02 of the budget. Foreign governments and international organizations, here we essentially refer to the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, where our subscription decreased by 42.31% in 2016-2017. And this decrease in the budget is due to 2 payments made in the 2015-16 financial year, which increased the expenditure in that year. Only 1 payment is budgeted for in 2016-2017. Households increased by 4.71%, which is an inflationary increase. Non-profit organizations, political parties' allowances increased by 6.04% in 2016, which consists of the payments to political parties and members enabling allowances. Non-profit organizations, which is political parties, account for 28.24% of the budget. The facilities for members, the enabling allowance is 7,296,000, and that's a 5.99% increase. The secretarial allowance is 10,624,000, that's a 7.16% increase. And the constituency allowances increased by 5.59% to 26,318,000. And that's a total of 44 million, and it's just over 6.04%. Deputy Speaker, during the 2015-2016 financial year, the Communication and Information section achieved all its APP targets. These included the steady growth of our social media activities and following, as well as a more than a 10% increase in traffic to our website. Recently, the functionality of the website has been enhanced, in particular to the members' portal, in order to allow members to conduct specific transactions related to their remuneration, enabling allowances and claims online. This will be of great value to members, particularly those who find themselves in their constituencies for protracted periods of time. The library once again completed 100% of the received reference requests by the deadline and to the satisfaction of the client. They also exceeded their target in respect of the number of library publications produced, many of which have been referred to by members in their speeches in this House. The records management function was transferred to the Communication and Information section in October 2015. Since 2 batches of records have been transferred to the Western Cape Archive Services. They are also in the process of finalising training for staff on the WCPP file plan. The first round of training will take place before the end of this month. During this year, we were able to recruit a dedicated receptionist. Unfortunately, we were unable to fund the second position, and as a result, one of the service officers has been seconded to this position. But you will then appreciate that this creates a gap somewhere else. While we try to manage these challenges, we can never totally mitigate the effect, and then we find ourselves slowly building up backlogs in other areas. And in the year ahead, we will be revisiting our communication strategy in order to ensure that we are doing the most we can with the limited resources at our disposal. We will also be implementing a new internal communication policy in order to centralize and better coordinate communication within the institution, whether purely among the administration or between the body politic and the administration. Information and communications technology is a key enabler of WCPP's strategic objectives as it strives to become compliant to FAMPLA, become a client-centric, and drive operational efficiencies and effectiveness. ICT is also a key enabler of the vision of creating a modern parliament. While the aging ICT infrastructure remains a concern due to lack of funding, efforts are being made to mitigate the risk of failure by extending the warranty period of the current servers and focusing on the available funding on ERP prerequisites. Lack of disaster recovery capability remains a concern, and efforts are being made to look at ways in which this risk can be mitigated. The disaster recovery capacity will become a critical item once the ERP system goes live in April 2017. One such effort is to collaborate with the Centre for E-Innovation in the Office of the Premier to see how we can utilize their existing networking contract and spare capacity in their data centre. Deputy Speaker, ICT will be focusing on 3 key areas during 2015 to 2019. These include implementing the ERP system and the continuous optimization of its use in the institution, refresh of ICT infrastructure, including establishing a disaster recovery ability, and ensuring efficient and effective delivery of ICT services, including improving availability of all services and building capacity internal to support, configure, and optimize the use of our business systems. Deputy Speaker, the safety of members and staff is and will always be a top priority for WCPP. The security plan has recently been approved, and the administration is currently finalizing the implementation plan. In collaboration with our partners, the South African Police Services, the Department of Transport and Public Works, and the Department of Community Safety, we will ensure that our members and staff are safe in the building and when they conduct oversight visits and public hearings in the province. Deputy Speaker, we will need to finalise the demarcation of our precincts, as this will aid our security planning. Accommodation also remains a challenge for WCPP, and to this end, we have conducted an internal assessment of its accommodation. We have now requested the Department of Transport and Public Works to take the assessment further and provide WCPP with recommendations in this regard. I have also noted the numerous concerns raised by members and staff about the conditions of the lifts in the building, and I am in the process of engaging Minister Grant in this regard. Our human resource management will in this financial year roll out the bulk of its skills development project called Project Grow. All employees will undergo training that has been tailor-made to address skills gaps that were identified during a comprehensive skills assessment process. The Western Cape Provincial Parliament is systematically addressing gaps that were identified to make sure that skills development is truly an investment in the individual and the institution. Our parliamentary services, we will remain focused and true to our core mandate, which includes making laws for the province and participating in the national lawmaking process through the National Council of Provinces, oversight of the executive, and the implementation of approved budgets and plans, and facilitating public involvement in all our parliamentary activities. In terms of committees, we have a very functional committee system, and our committees remain very productive when looked at in comparison with their counterparts in the sector. We have demonstrated this in our ability and effectiveness in dealing with our budget process. We have a very intensive program, and we are able to deal and complete our consideration of the appropriation bill in time before the start of the financial year. Our annual report process, similarly here, we examine the reports of the departments within a very tight but intensive program, and we get to finalise the process. Our engagement with the executive, one only needs to sit in our committee meetings to observe the level of robust debate in these meetings. Our oversight visits, the effective coordination of these visits and the lessons and observations made from them, and then our very effective participation in the NCOP legislative process and outreach programs. Our ability to always provide mandates on Section 76 bills refer to WCPP despite the constrained timeframes. All this has been made possible by the very effective administration and procedural advisory support provided by our committee staff and their counterparts in other sections. For the year ahead, we will still continue to improve in all these areas, and in delivering on these commitments, we will be mindful of the following challenges: the budgetary constraints that may require us to still remain productive, but with less available resources. This means that we will not be able to employ additional staff in this area, and that our committees may have to do with less of what they are now accustomed to in terms of catering and refreshments, amongst others. The limits imposed by the constraints on our committee scheduling, this means that despite our increasing work schedule, we will have to be innovative in our scheduling of the business of committees. The Chief Whip has led this process, and we will be implementing the new scheduling as we start the new year. With everything new, there is bound to be teething problems, but I have no doubt that by the end of this calendar year, we will have resolved whatever challenges that may emerge. Plenary support services, and here we talk to sittings of the House, which are the primary platform for this Parliament to make decisions and resolutions that are critical for the governance of this province. They also serve as the most public of places where important issues affecting the province and its people can be debated. We have seen very robust engagement in this House since its inception in 2014. Apart from the many debates that we have had on legislation, the annual report, we have also seen a total of 10 sponsored subjects for discussion debates. Our members have actively participated and put to effective use the following measures and mechanisms: questions to the executive, and these include written and oral, interpellations and questions to the Premier, statements by members, and motions. Our business is managed very tightly, and thanks to the WIPRI in the Programming Committee under the able leadership of the Honourable Wali, will make sure that our parliamentary program is adaptable, we are able to meet our constitutional obligations as a provincial parliament. A lot of work in the current year has gone into the review of the standing rules. This has been a painstaking exercise for the administrative team, but I'm happy to say that the team has finalized proposals which now require the attention, firstly, of the parties and then of the Rules Committee. We will be expecting parties in the Rules Committee to table substantive proposals so that we can do an absolute cleanup of our rules and then move forward with our revised rules. We need to finalize the review process not too long in the new year, and although there is no vacuum in the interim, you will agree with me, Deputy Speaker, that there are areas in our current rules that require immediate improvement, and decisions must be made soon in this regard. Public Education and Outreach Section continues to deliver on their mandate to raise awareness within our communities across the province about the Provincial Parliament, its processes, and how they can exercise their right to be involved in these processes. For the current year to date, the section has been able to deliver more than 60 legislative education initiatives, primarily through workshops, but also using other forms of engagement. The section is able to realize this because it works on establishing partnerships with organizations that in turn use WCPP education curriculum and material to educate their members and local communities. For the new year, this section will continue to work closely with the committee section and others within the legislature to ensure reasonable success for public hearing attendance and the ability of the public to make submissions on legislation and other measures. The resource constraints do affect our ability to be very ambitious in our targeted education initiatives because we will need more staff to be able to increase the number of our workshops while responding to the needs of committees to facilitate involvement. With regard to language services, the unit is on course in ensuring that all programmed and confirmed meetings of the Provincial Parliament and its committees are provided with interpreting services. That we meet our targets with regard to translations of the House papers published in this period and made available in all of the 3 official languages. And with regard to Hansard services, we have seen a tremendous improvement in the turnaround time for the publication of the Hansard record in its various forms. The unrevised Hansard transcript, the revised final Hansard transcript, and the completed Hansard volume, which is the book. We have, however, seen an escalation in the cost of Hansard services, primarily due to the practice of producing the Hansard volumes, the books, in all of the 3 languages. The escalation in cost is not in the production of the Hansard per se, but rather the cost of replicating the translation, the compilation, and printing of the 2 more volumes. While this remains a noble effort, these costs have become unsustainable. Going forward, we will be producing only 1 volume, containing in it the relevant language versions in which the members' speeches was rendered. We will be providing the English translation of every speech rendered in Afrikaans or isiXhosa below the original source language. Despite this change that has been forced by the need to contain our costs, we believe that we will still be remaining true to the letter of the Western Cape Provincial Languages Act of 1998 as captured in Section 2.2 of the Act. In closing, Deputy Speaker, allow me to thank our members for their support. I'd also like to thank Dr. Lawrence and his team for their distinction in dealing with challenges under difficult circumstances. And in the short time that Dr. Lawrence has been here, he has demonstrated a thorough understanding of our business and has already started to make a difference in the senior management team. I would also want to thank my office, especially Yanni Ace, for the work that he has done, and to you, Deputy, for all your support. And I would like to say that slowly but surely the building blocks for a successful organization are being put in place. And I'm convinced that with a collective effort, we shall take WCPP from good to great. I thank you.
The Honourable Wiley.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you to the Speaker for a very full report. Not much left for me to talk about. This year, Vote 2 has received the second largest percentage increase in the overall provincial budget, namely 8.65%. Given the austerity measures that all in the country are having to experience, this is significant and a commitment to ensure that this legislature continues its to fulfill its oversight role. The increase must also be seen in light of the transition that the governance of this institution is currently undergoing. This transition has been as a result of the implementation, as the Speaker has said, of the FUMPLA Act, the Financial Management of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, which has forced certain cost drivers upon this Parliament, as well as structural changes in the areas of administrative governments. This budget has been made allowance for these changes as stipulated by the Speaker in her introduction. Similarly, provision has been made in the Speaker's office for the inclusion of a Treasury unit to ensure fiscal security and accountability. More importantly, for us as members, has been the creation of a new oversight mechanism in the form of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee. And to this end, we have followed the Act in the spirit, and as a result, we appear to be the only legislature to have ensured independent oversight. In the other legislatures, the Speaker remains the chair of this Oversight Committee, which rather defeats the objects of the exercise. One wonders what they may have to hide in those legislatures. I want to thank the Speaker, the Acting Secretary and his staff for seamlessly complying with the demands of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee. This legislature is unique and successful. It allows free and regular debate, and its oversight has received praise from the Auditor General. It is the smallest per capita in the country, and it runs on the smallest staff and budget. Despite this, the staff are efficient and dedicated, and we as members owe them a debt of gratitude for the work that they do. However, Deputy Speaker, I think we should also be deeply concerned by the tendency of the national government to bring about centralisation. We are increasingly seeing this in bills that are being sent to this House. These bills are highly contentious and controversial and, in our opinion, unconstitutional. These require in-depth analysis and public discourse via hearings and committee deliberations. This costs money. Because this province is the only opposition-run province and widely acknowledged as being the best run and administered in the country, it is incumbent on us to defend democracy. Many of these bills simply turn into bad laws, and the resultant regulations cause mayhem in society and deeply affect this country from developing into a prosperous society. The task of defending people's rights we will willingly do, but it costs time and money. The current expropriation bill is a case in question, and its future does not bode well for South Africa. Similarly, the Single Public Service Bill will hamstring this country from any prospect to grow. Similarly, the indications are that there is a discussion, as the Speaker has already referred to, for a law to centralise the administration of all legislatures, and this will be the doodle pot for the separation of powers in this country. Member Ace's comment when the Speaker referred to it was, "That's good." Should put him in the right context. These ideas are simply communistic and begs the question as to which voter has had the opportunity to vote for this non-existent political party. But, Deputy Speaker, there is another significant threat to this Parliament. This is the new tendency by the ANC in this House to disassociate itself from any responsibility for its action while its members in this legislature, and to show the utmost disrespect to the ethos of public accountability. We are all members of this House. As Member Dugbo said in his absence, we're in this together. We signed the Public Office Bearers Code of Conduct. We took the oath in front of the Speaker's bench, in front of a judge, to uphold the Constitution of South Africa. Yet, when it comes to the real conduct of the ANC members, they do all in their power to evade accountability. The fact that so many of them are missing in this chamber is indicative of that. When Mr. Fransman was asked to appear before the Public Accounts Committee to answer questions stemming from an Auditor General's report covering the period when he was a minister, he refused. The report questioned missing and misused money to the tune of hundreds of millions of rands. He had to be summoned by the sheriff, and then he appeared, but then refused to take the stand, and then he walked out, as did the Chief Whip, who was also summoned. To prevent this Parliament from taking any further action, he took it to the High Court. Last year's cost to this legislature was 426,000 rand in legal fees. And we're having a budget for an amount of 700,000 rand to be budgeted for this financial year to defend the right of this parliament to do its work. What does Mr. Fransman care? He is using the state attorney to defend him, and his personal legal advisor is the head of justice in the Western Cape, Advocate Mohammed. By the way, where is Mr. Fransman? Surely the rules must be amended, because the current rules are old rules that applied to apartheid parliaments, where Parliament sat for 6 months continuously. Our current Parliament system should be applied that if you miss 15 sessions of Parliament, including committees, you should be booted out. Similarly, the Chief Whip is currently embroiled with the disciplinary committee for what was probably the most publicly witnessed demonstration of defiance of the Speaker's authority in the history of this legislature, when he almost single-handedly prevented last year's SOPA from taking place. So much for free speech and being an honourable member. As Doug Moore said, we're in this together. So far, the lawyer engaged to guide the process of the disciplinary committee has cost this Parliament 23,940 rand. There are numerous other cases where ANC members have tied down committees and staff in order to hold their members to account. This effectively deflects members' energy, time and budget from doing their core business, namely holding the executive to account, not the members to account. We cannot continue like this, and in due course we are going to have to change our rules and the code to ensure that members who have no honour and do not intend to respect accountability are kept to the code and House rules we all agreed to. This budget has already embraced the required austerity measures, and in line with this, the committees have had to make adjustments to effect savings. The routine late afternoon slots that had a significant impact on overtime have been curtailed and in some cases shelved. The Speaker also alluded to other cuts, including a limitation on foreign visits and independent committee visits. Another area of cost containment has been to reduce the automatic translation and printing of Hansard in all 3 languages. The ANC has been quick to make political mileage of this matter. But the fact of the matter is that this adjustment is in line with the practice in other legislatures, but more importantly is in line with regards, as the Speaker said, both the language policy and the Act. Maar ek moet vra, hoekom is daar soveel lede in hierdie huis nooit hulle huistaal praat in hierdie huis? Hulle praat nooit die huistaal, maar hulle is so geheg daaraan. Ironically, it is the very ANC and its fronts that have been in the forefront of the suppression of Afrikaans around this country and at universities. In closing, I'd just like to touch on a couple of things. The Speaker talked about the National Council of Provinces. The National Council of Provinces does what it wants, when it wants, and how it wants. And most significantly, it wants to do a lot of it here in the Western Cape. And there's a couple of reasons. Obviously, there are political reasons that they want to try and show the Western Cape up, which unfortunately every time they try, they fail because we are a well-run province and we have little to hide. But more importantly, it's one of the single best ways for them to have a successful outing is to use the parliamentary staff of the Western Cape Parliament to assist them with the committee work. They do all the work, then they give the raw work to their officials who write the final report and take the credit for it. But the fact of the matter is that most of the work is done by the Western Cape parliamentary staff when we have these visits. The last time when they cancelled the follow-up to the National Council of Provinces taking Parliament to the people in Eden, which was a massive disgrace as far as public expenditure is concerned, they cancelled it at the last minute. The cancellation costs of the hotel and airfares to get to that was 28,000 rand. They're still considering on the other side whether they're going to reimburse us for that. Just the cancellation costs for us. But ladies and gentlemen, and Deputy Speaker, there are other ways in which the National Council of Provinces makes a nonsense of democracy. For instance, yesterday, we were asked to participate, as is our right in the National Council of Provinces, in the Human Rights Day debate. We got an invitation, the Premier, Can I
Order.
get some protection if you don't mind?
Order, honourable member at the back there. Allow the member to speak.
Thank you. We were invited to take part in the debate yesterday, and Honourable Mackenzie was tasked with the responsibility, and he was going to have a full go at him with regard to the disgraceful human rights record of this government and the support of other African countries whose human rights records are some of the worst in the history of this continent, like Omar al-Bashir. And the High Court pronounced on that earlier in this week. He was going to have a field day. But when he gets there, they change the topic. They changed the topic. They had to talk about water and drought. I'm pleased to say that, being a very flexible young man that he is, he made an outstanding speech and told the House and the country about how badly the Minister of Agriculture pays his own labourers. So, but the point is, Deputy Speaker, that these things cost time and energy, and it is not good for this country to have chaos the way that it is run under ANC government. I want to thank Parliament and congratulate...
Order.
Order, please.
Order.
Is it parliamentary for a member to tell another member you are always drunk?
Speaker, I did not hear that. If somebody did say that, it's clearly unparliamentary. Will the Speaker direct me to the member who said that? Is there a member that will concede that?
It was Member Diana who...
Member Diana, did you say that? Member Diana, if you did say that, withdraw immediately.
Okay, I withdraw.
Member Wali, you may continue.
Cheers to you. I want to thank Parliament for the presentation on the portal. I must admit I'm not a particularly great fan of internet technology, but what we witnessed and what they presented to us...
Order.
What they presented
Member Diana,
to us...
please, Honourable Mackenzie, allow the member to continue. Member Wali, please continue.
Member Mackenzie, contain yourself. All right. But seriously, the members' portal and those of you who missed the presentation by Parliament missed a very helpful instrument that has been put to our disposal. I think it's also going to aid the speed with which claims are processed and make it a lot easier. So thank you very much for that. It was very disheartening to see the low attendance at that and other workshops, I might tell you. But it's not unremarkable when, especially on the other side of the House, the attendance level is absolutely abysmal. That's why we had to change the rules. We had to change the rules that the quorum didn't include two parties, because we could never rely on our colleagues on the other side there to maintain the quorum. Last year, I'd just like to speak about security in the precinct of Parliament, because the precinct of Parliament has been used over and over again, as well as in disciplinary matters, especially relating to members of the other side there, who hide under the fact that the precinct of Parliament is not absolutely clear. So when they get ordered out of the House, what is technically meant to happen is that the sheriff over there, the sergeant at arms, is meant to escort them straight past their officers down to their car and tell them to leave the premises. That's what the rule says. So what do? They fly down to some other floor and they hide out there. And in some cases, and I would suggest that the honourable member keeps quiet, because the CCTV cameras showed that you allowed a person to come into this house using someone else's passkey.
Order. 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 Please
It's
continue.
the truth. But
Members, please calm down. Allow the member to continue his speech. It's almost finished.
as I say, Deputy Speaker, the cameras do not lie. I just want to take this opportunity to, although our security is often a matter of concern to all of us, I just want to thank us.
Order. Honourable Wale, just take your seat for a moment. We've asked before, the Speaker has also asked, and I'm asking again, the three backbenchers of the ANC, particularly at the back there. You can't continue like that all the time. Please allow the member now the opportunity to continue his speech and to finish off. Mr. Wale, you may continue.
Thank you, the fearsome threesome. Deputy Speaker, I just want to thank the South African Police Service for the work that they do to us. A lot of it is done undercover in what I'm talking about. is that they do so, that you often don't see what they do, but they do an enormous amount of work. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you very much for the services they render. And I hope that in time to come, there has been a marked increase in some of the surveillance, and we want to thank them for that. Thank you.
I see the Honourable Mr. Uys.
Deputy Speaker, and thanks for that undercover speech we heard. Adjunct Speaker, provinsiale wetgewer in krisis. Dit is wat ons gehoor het vandag hier van die speaker, gehoor het van die personeel en wat ons baie duidelik ervaar en dis die prentjie wat geskets is, ook toe ons laas met mekaar gepraat het. Adjunct Speaker, wat ons baie duidelik hier moet sê is dat in 2016-17 is daar geen addisionele geld bewillig nie. Die speaker moet dit erken, daar's 9 miljoen rand bewillig en dit is werklik, it's been ring-fenced for one specific project and that was for the ERP and the implementation of the legislation. Adjunct Speaker, dit is onaanvaarbaar en 'n skreiende manipulering hoe geld die provinsiale wetgewer weerhou word. En die speaker wil dit nie erken nie en dit lyk asof sy niks aan wil doen nie. Maar kyk ons na die begroting wat ons gesien het hierdie jaar, wat gekom het van die minister van Finansies, is daar begroot vir 'n reserve van 442 miljoen rand, is in die begroting. Verder is daar 52,8 miljoen rand op sy gesit vir 'n reserve vir eiendom. En dan as ons verder kyk, dan sien ons tot aan die einde van Januarie hierdie jaar, 2016, is daar 'n onderspandering van 334 miljoen rand van hierdie departemente wat hier sit. Maar hulle kan nie 34 miljoen rand gee vir die wetgewer om die nodige funksies te verrig en dit daar te doen nie. Adjunct Speaker, die beleidsrigtinge en prioriteite en hoe en tot watter mate dit geïmplementeer word en ook in hierdie departement hang baie sterk saam met die begrotingstoekenning. In die begroting van hierdie pos 2 provinsiale wetgewer is daar verder 'n baie duidelike en doelbewuste skuif weg van die primêre mandaat om te verseker dat alle provinsiale staatsorgane, provinsiale wetgewer verantwoording doen en die provinsiale wetgewer toesig hou oor die uitvoering van die provinsiale uitvoerende gesag en ook wetgewing. Die kernfunksies en verantwoordelikhede, Adjunct Speaker, van die provinsiale wetgewer is dus om ondersteuning te gee aan die huis en komitees om hulle in staat te stel om 'n wetgewende oorsig effektief te kan vervul, gemeenskapsdeelname te bewerkstellig. En dit is net logies dat dit nie so in die begroting weerspieël word nie, want ons het gesê daar was nie eers 'n sent verhoging in enige van daardie funksies nie. Deputy Speaker, the budget of the provincial legislature have 3 programs, and the Speaker referred to that. Program 1, administration, and that's the one where you normally cut. But we see an increase in administration of 20%, Honourable Speaker. But when we look at Program 3, and that is parliamentary services, and this is really the heart and the core of what we do here, there we see a decrease of 10.71%. And this is the core functions in this specific program, Program 3. And what do we find there where we see the decrease, Honourable Deputy Speaker? We see the preliminary support, we see committees, we see public education, we see Hansard language services. And what do we see? A decrease of 10.7% in the most fundamental, critical ones, and in administration, an increase of 20%. Honourable Deputy Speaker, in August 2015, and it's still in this financial year, and we hope that there would be something happening in this budget, the Parliamentary Oversight Committee received a report from the Secretary to this legislator, not from anybody else, but the Secretary to this legislator, where she stated, the Western Cape Provincial Parliament cannot implement disaster recovery, which places the institution at risk in the event of failure or loss of ICT infrastructure equipment. Secondly, the ICT infrastructure were acquired in 2009. The equipment is overdue for replacement as they reach the end of life. This places the institution at the risk that we will be running out of ICT resources shortly. And I'll carry on with what the Secretary to this Parliament said. No funds available to compensate staff for working the extended working hours required to support committees, Plenary sittings and approach to oversight visits will have to be revisited. And I understand why we see there's an opposition to what the NCOP is doing, because they want to cut back on oversight visits out there in the community. But I continue what the Secretary to this Parliament said to this Parliamentary Oversight Committee. At present, the Western Cape Provincial Parliament Committee Support Service is on the brink of collapse. I'm not saying that, she said that. Its much needed interventions do not materialize sooner. There are real signs that the service is no longer able to absorb all the pressures exerted on it, and more importantly, on the individuals. This is increasing the incidence of, and we've seen it happening here, Deputy Speaker, fatigue and burnout expressed by team members, specifically staff members, the use of sick leave increasing drastically, and I don't blame them for that, and there's something they can't help for, decline in the quality of work and ability to meet standards, intervention in terms of psychological effects on staff is perhaps the most neglected. And I wonder, Speaker, if you really know what's happening within the staff and what's happening there in terms of this section. A system should not be allowed to collapse. The Secretary went that far. A system, meaning it's on the brink of collapse, should not be allowed to collapse. The cost of rebuilding it will be much more and many times the monetary. And public education and outreach must be adequately resourced. And we know it's not been adequately resourced. There's a 1.4% increase in that. How can you do it? How can you reach all sectors, and how can you reach all sectors in this specific province? On the crisis, the Speaker responded to say she needed, and she repeated that today, an immediate 34 million rand. And we agree that's what she needed to get the house in shape. This would address staff shortages as well as upgrade financial and technological systems. When the Speaker continues to say, but I can only fix it if I have money. As long as I don't have money, I can't fix it. And she didn't receive any money to fix the problem that we experienced here in this provincial legislature. Adjunct Speaker, van verlede September tot nou die Speaker ek in geval. En sy het dit self erken vandag hier, en ons het dit in die verlede weer gesê, om aan te dring dat die provinsiale wetgewer voldoende befonds is. Dis nie genoeg om vir die Speaker te sê, kyk wat kry die ander wetgewers nie. Sy moet eintlik in skaamte haar kop laat sak en sê, dis hierdie parlement, hierdie mense wat hier voorsit, wat besluit in die kabinet neem, wat nie meer geld gee nie. Dis hoekom daar in ander provinsies meer geld vir die wetgewers is, want as 'n doelbewuste besluit om die wetgewer te versterk en die nodige ondersteuning dan nou daar te gee. Maar kyk ons wat is die reaksie van die Speaker in hierdie verband, is dit baie duidelik, sy kom net met een oplossing na vore, en sy sê, we're going to cut on the time slots. Die tyd gelewe van 16:30 tot 18:30 vir komitees gaan geskrap word. Wat se intervensie is dit, Speaker? Watter ondersteuning is dit vir die personeel om te sê, word vir 2 ure dit geskrap? Dit beteken ons niks nie, nee, Speaker. Dit beteken duidelik niks nie, en dit gaan geensins die omstandighede van hierdie personeel verbeter nie. Ons het gehoor, daar gaan ook geen personeel aangestel word nie. Maar nou ja, jy het nou vir ons 'n ander antwoord gegee wat jy gaan doen, en ek gaan nou daarby uitkom. En nou in plaas daarvan om die wetgewer en lede te bemagtig en te ondersteun, adjunct Speaker, word die geleentheid misbruik om verder die oorsigrol van komitees te beperk, deur eensydig alle komitees wat op die weeklikse basis vergader het, te herskeduleer. So elke week het elke komitee vergader. Waarom? Om behoorlike oorsig te doen, om besoeke te doen daar buite om te sien wat gebeur. Maar 'n antwoord is, kom ons kry nie meer geld nie, kom ons skaal af oor die oorsigrol wat moet gespeel word. En so, adjunct Speaker, waar die staande komitee van die premier elke week vergader het, en ek dink is 'n baie belangrike komitee, is dit nou uitgeskuif dat daardie komitee net elke 3de week sal vergader. En so kry ons die komitees oor vervoer en openbare werke, plaaslike regering, finansies, maatskaplike ontwikkeling, mensenedersettings en gemeenskapsveiligheid. En wat gebeur met hulle? Hulle gaan nou net elke 2de week vergader. En wat ons daar sien is daar 'n groter probleem geskep word met oorsig wat ons dan nou op hierdie stadium kry, maar die probleem word nie aangespreek nie. So moenie na ons toe kom en te sê ons gee om oor oorsig nie. Nee, ons skaal af daarop. Maar ek dink dit pas dit so, die kabinet wat die fondse toeken, dit pas hulle, want hoe minder oorsig daar is, hoe minder gereeld komitees vergader, hoe minder in diepte kan daar ondersoeke wees en natuurlik die oorsigrol word afgewater. Maar speaker, in die begroting, en dis nie die begroting waaroor die provinsiale toeserie beheer het nie, waaroor die speaker self direkte beheer het. En sy het vandag vir ons gesê hoe belangrike rol die staande komitees is. Dis die ruggraat, dis die ondersteuning, dis die fundament van wat ons hier doen. Die staande komitees se begrotings met 18,4% gesny van verlede jaar tot nou toe. Nie deur die tesourier nie, adjunct speaker, maar deur die eie toedoen van die speaker. As die speaker selfs nie erns het met die rol van befondsing nie, van staande komitees nie, wat anders word daar verwag? En miskien moet ek net daarby stil staan oor die fondse. Kyk ons na die fondse wat bewillig is vir hierdie provinsiale parlement, vir hierdie finansiële jaar, dan adjunct speaker, soos ons vandag hier staan, gaan daar in onderspandering wees. Die onderspandering gister, speaker, as jy dit nie weet nie, was 10 miljoen rand. Die projekteerde onderspandering van die departement gaan 4,7 miljoen rand wees as ons einde van Maart kom. Waarom? Ons sukkel om werk te doen. Hoekom het u nie na die ERP gekyk en die geld daarvoor gebruik nie? Maar ons staan nou op 'n onderspandering in hierdie finansiële jaar. Nou wil ek begin verstaan wat tesourier besig is om u te sê. Gebruik u geld doeltreffend, moenie onderspandeer nie, dan kan ons miskien weer na u kyk. So die klem moet baie sterk daarna verskuif. Deputy Speaker, in 2010, we heard the dear administration and the Speaker then that oversight will intensify as the oversight model is settled and fully implemented in 2010-2011 financial year. But at this moment, no customized legislative sector oversight model. How can we see, and we see the same empty promises year after year after year? It's sorry, Speaker, it's in your APP again. I can't believe you. I can't. Because it's coming for 5 years now and there's absolutely nothing done. And I know why not. Because you don't want oversight and therefore you don't want to have a customized oversight model for the Western Cape. There's a national one and there's one in all other provinces except in this specific province. Young Speaker, for a very long period we had an acting secretary. Dis die enigste departement wat soveel jare in waarnemende sekretaris gehad het. Dit weerspieël klaar iets van die bestuur en die uitvoerende gesag wat ons hier het. When Mrs. Fakira was appointed, but working only here for a year, she resigned. She was appointed and worked here for a year. The provincial legislature had lost 2 of their 3 most senior officials, both women, within weeks from another under your watch, Speaker. The ANC believes it is part of a concerted political purge. The secretary, Fakira, resigned at the end of January 2016. At the end of last year, the very competent Deputy Secretary and Registrar of Members' Interest, Rashida Beck, left. Things are falling apart, Deputy Speaker, very clear. And why did they leave? It's emanating from this report from 2015, very clear, where the Secretary stated to the Parliamentary Oversight Committee there's problems. But that was ignored, and they were told in writing by the Speaker to make do with what they have. Fakira had no room to do her work. She had no choice but to get out of this dead end, and you know that, Speaker. And I will not quote what happened in the meetings and how you treated her. And now, Speaker, you appointed another acting secretary. You appointed another acting secretary. It's like just acting here. When asking on the filling of the vacancy of the secretary, and Deputy Speaker, I've asked the Speaker this, when are you going to fill this vacancy? And you, to my shock and surprise, he said, we can't afford the recruitment process. You can't afford the recruitment process to appoint a secretary to this Parliament. So you just sit back and say, acting. That can't be. No, I can't think that this is true. I've heard various excuses not to follow due process, but this is totally unacceptable that we see from your side. Honourable Deputy Speaker, Last year, the Speaker committed to an organisational design. Now, the organisational design is ideal for the staff. There's been a lot of movement within the administration, and if you want a modern, new administration, you need a proper organisational design. A year later, the Speaker came now to this legislature and said, no, sorry, I abandoned the organisational design. I'm not going that route anymore. Where are we going? Are we just going to do things ad hoc here? Are we just going to acting here that we see? Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Speaker referred to this, and this is very important. And Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Speaker did not give the correct information here today. And I'm referring to the Financial Management of Parliament and Provincial Legislators Act. Deputy Speaker, that act is very clear. The act is very clear. The accounting officer must...
Order. Honourable Bierwinkel, and I think it's Minister Windy there, or Minister Grant, just calm down, please. Please.
Deputy Speaker, the act is very clear. But I know the Speaker don't want to implement the act. Everything coming from national is, it's unconstitutional, as we heard today with the regulations that's going to come. The accounting officer, Honourable Deputy Speaker, the accounting officer must establish an internal audit committee, while the Speaker must appoint an audit committee. But the Speaker decided that in both cases, that function will be rendered by the office of the Premier. There must be oversight of this legislator over the Premier's department, not the Premier's department oversight over the legislator. And the example that was given, or the reason, Honourable Deputy Speaker, that was given was to say, oh, they're going to pay for it. You can't let them pay for it. They must transfer the money to you so you have an own function, so you're going to do oversight. How can you have those two important ones outsourced to the executive that you must oversee and that you must do proper control over? It's wrong and it's illegal. So you better sort that out, and better sort that out very, very quickly. Honourable geachte adjunct Speaker, in die begroting vir die toekenning van Hansard-dienste, en daar is wel daarna verwys, is die Hansard en taaldienste met 48% gesny. Weer eens 'n belangrike funksie. En wat ons hoor van die Speaker is dat niks gaan vertaal word van Engels af na Afrikaans toe nie. Dit hoor ons daar. Dit hoor ons baie, baie duidelik. Soos enige iemand iets in Afrikaans gesê het, al wat in die Hansard gaan kom, gaan die Afrikaanse weergawe wees en 'n vertaling in Engels. But once you speak in this house in English, it will not be translated in Hansard, in any of the other two languages. It's unconstitutional, Speaker, and you try to quote some of the language legislation there, and I would like to hear you on that. Adjunct Speaker, Speaker in your office, and that's a big chunk of the money of the 20% increase you budgeted for the Treasury unit. But when asked what will the functions and the responsibilities of this unit be, you budgeted for it. The Speaker said, I don't know, but she budgeted for it. Speaker, maybe you are now in a better position to tell this House what the Treasury unit will do. Deputy Speaker, under Programme 1 Administration, the budget for communications and information will increase by 12%. We heard that as well. To establish a registry/record-keeping function here. Speaker, from when will a communication and information section have a registry? The registry of an organization. And there's only one reason that I can find that, Honourable Deputy Speaker, and that reason's very clear. You're building an empire for somebody, you're building somebody's job description and a post level of a specific individual. And maybe it's right that you smile at that individual. I'm sure he will smile back at you in that regard. Today, Speaker, we also need a clear undertaking from yourself that no international travel will take place in the coming financial year. No, we want that commitment, not a 9 months commitment, not a 10 months commitment, a full year commitment from yourself that that will not happen.
Order. Order, both sides. Allow the member to continue.
13 secondes. Speaker, I'm going to conclude.
Time is almost up, ja.
Ja, ek besef dit. Ek wil baie dankie sê vir die personeel wat baie hard werk. Onder baie moeilike omstandighede. Die uitvoerende gesag gee hulle nie die geleentheid nie, maar hulle werk nogtans bitter hard. En baie dankie van IT, van finansies, van die mense wat ondersteuning vir ons gee met ons toelaat en die ondersteuning daarmee. Ek dink dit word baie professioneel gedoen. Een boodskap net aan hulle asseblief, bly professioneel en weerhou julle daarvan om by politiek ingetrek te word. Dankie.
Order, the Honourable Christians.
Deputy Speaker, I want to thank the Speaker and the Secretary for the excellent work they're doing. But Deputy Speaker, we just saw the biggest actor in this House. The biggest actor. I don't sit on this committee, but I sit in Program Authority. And you know, we discussed the oversight of committees. And the Chief Whip said, you know, the two biggest departments is education and health, and this is how we're going to do it. Now, he could not debate the fact why we should have oversight of the committees every and each week. He could not. So now he comes and cry, like a crybaby banter. He comes and cry. But Speaker, he is such a hypocrite because we as parties sat and interviewed the Secretary.
Order, daar's 'n punt van orde.
Can't call me hypocrite.
Hypocriet is 'n woord wat van tevore onparlementêr verklaar is, maar ons het baie meer vryhede toegelaat die jongste tyd en ek is bereid om te sê hypocriet is vir die omstandighede oukei. As dit nie so is ek sal terugkom maar ek sal dit toelaat vir die oomblik.
No, Speaker, Deputy Speaker, this is what I'm going to say. We sat and we interviewed the Secretary. We took time and we all decided to appoint Ms. Fakira. We all did that. So we've sat there, and when the Speaker called us and said, we're going to have a temporary measure, that was explained. Now Member A's come and say, but there's problems. That is a hypocrite. I must say that's a hypocrite, saying the one thing and doing the other. But Speaker, again, when we talk about Hansard, again, we talk about cost saving. Now the Speaker comes and says, this is how we can save costs. And then he says it's unconstitutional. He says, no, you can't do that. So Member Ace must decide if he wants to help build this provincial parliament or you want to break it down week in and week out. He's always got the most to say and the most critical to say, but he does not make contributions. And when he cannot get it right, he comes here and cries. Speaker, I think the ANC today did not contribute anything to these debates. Negative, and they need to go for training and counseling and whatever they need to do. I thank you.
Order. Please come to order before they allow the Speaker to respond. Honourable Diana, I'm busy talking from the chair. Speaker, you may respond.
Deputy Speaker, let me first thank the members who have participated in this debate. The contributions are valued as the administration is here to support the members in fulfilling their constitutional obligations and to generally make the term of members a fulfilling one. I have taken cognizance of the matters raised in the report of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee, and I would like to thank the chairperson of the Parliamentary Oversight Committee for the thoroughness with which this committee conducts its financial oversight of WCPP. However, it is important for me to respond to certain statements that were made, and I think it is, and I must agree with the Honourable Christians, that the Honourable Ace has the ability to do a flip-flop. A year ago, he lambasted me for not asking for money. Yet at a Parliamentary Oversight Committee meeting not so long ago when we talked about shared services for audit, he said that's a great idea, we can save money. So I am concerned that the Honourable Ace uses this platform to rehash a report of August 2015. Life goes on, time goes on. 7 months later, we have moved. He is still stuck in his time warp. He is still dealing with the old issues which have actually been dealt with, and we've moved on. As for parliamentary oversight committees, go to any of the other legislatures and see if theirs is in place. They don't have anything in place. And as for the Treasury function, which the Speaker's Forum is supposed to inform, they don't know what they're doing. They have no cooking clue. When we get to a sector oversight model, the AG told us we don't need a sector oversight model. We can standardize our oversight, and the AG told us when we next go to the Speaker's Forum, we must share our success of oversight with the other provinces. So despite the fact that the Honourable Ace wants to stand there and treat me as if I'm some little girl, I will not take instruction from him. He is one of 42 members, and he is part of this institution. And on another note, I would like to say to him that as a member of this institution, I would encourage him to build it and not break it down in the media when he can't get his way in a Parliamentary Oversight Committee meeting. My door has always been open, but he has proven that he is fickle, because in our meetings and discussions, he agrees in good faith. And at the very next public platform, he twists all those words to play politics. So to the Honourable Ace, I would like to say to you, you are untrustworthy and you are spinning an agenda that is not going to work. Thank you. And Deputy, the only way, Deputy Speaker,
Order.
Can you protect me, please?
Order. Honourable Lecker.
The only way we get to develop a world-class institution is by being aware of checks and balances. And I'm surprised that the Honourable Ace, who is a seasoned politician, can't read the writing on the wall. This country is in serious distress. And those legislatures that get all that additional funding and have all that additional staff, they are going to see realignment and retrenchments. So the bubble has burst, and sadly, I think the opposition hasn't realized the importance and the severity of the situation. And I have learned that you can only cut your cloth according to your needs. So I am asking that the members support us going forward, because at the end of the day, it's members and staff that make up this institution. And I would like to say that the ANC is part of Parliament. They don't operate on their own. So when Honourable Ace chooses to speak from the Parliamentary Oversight Committee, he's not the chair of that committee, so he needs to get his processes and protocols right at the same time. Deputy, I would like to take...
Order.
Deputy, I would like to take this opportunity, excuse me.
Order.
Deputy, it's very sad when we have members who sit here and they have limited or no understanding of the bigger picture. There is a macro cataclysmic something happening out there, and our members still live in their own little world. I bought my fancy cell phone with Parliament's money. We have to look at how we use taxpayers' money prudently. And on the point of taxpayers' money, this province contributes 14.7% to the fiscus. We only get 10% back. So this idea of the ANC telling us that it's the money from the ANC, they must get rid of that notion. It's a myth. They must stop debunking that. I'm sorry. Lastly, Deputy, I would like to thank the staff. They do a sterling piece of work. We have good, committed people who come to work, and they are not here to drive,
Order.
to drive agendas, Deputy. And the staff are professional in the way that they operate. And you know why? People are allowed to move on. I will never hold back any staff member who wants to pursue his or her career outside of WCPP. So there is something called life. We've got to deal with it, and we've got to get on with it. Thank you, Deputy.
Order. That concludes the business for the day. The House is adjourned.